Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint. Now it's time for our regular introducing feature where we throw the spotlight on an up-and-coming professional SAA artist who is causing a creative stir. It gives me great pleasure to introduce international teacher and versatile acrylic artist Terry Chipp, whose work can be found in private collections across the world. Let's find out a little more about Terry and take a look at him in action.
After a career in art education, I finally escaped the classroom about 12 years ago and now work as a professional artist. I paint a lot of different subjects, but I particularly like landscapes and buildings. I'm fascinated by old doors and windows and crumbling, fading stone walls. Getting those effects into a painting can be quite a challenge, but with a little preparation and letting the paint do what it does best, it can become quite an adventure. Today I'm going to show you how to get some of those effects of that crumbling stone, the crumbling plaster on a wall. And there are two ways of tackling it. One is to copy every little detail from a photograph or from a wall. I prefer to actually build the wall, so I'm going to begin by using this moulding paste to actually plaster a wall onto my canvas. I believe at some point someone got the cement on a trowel and they actually pasted it, plastered it all over the canvas. So I'm creating sort of Greek cafe style plasterwork. Very rough, intentionally rough. Some of my students, when they try to copy this, they get a bit too careful. They want to polish it, but that doesn't help. Just lay it on thick and let it have a nice strong texture. Once that's on, then I use my pencil to redraw the design. The moulding paste, this is Atelier moulding paste, is thin enough for you to be able to still see the design through. And so at that, it's possible to redraw the design quite quickly. I need to keep the pencil clear. A blunt pencil is best for this. If you use a sharp one, there's a chance you might damage the canvas, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm just very hastily putting these in. I'm deliberately working quickly, almost carelessly, because this energy that you put into the first stages runs on into the final picture. If you're too careful, the picture can look dead. So I'm going to put a few extra little scratches and marks into the plasterwork. I'm going to put a bit of shading between the bricks, and that I would leave at that, so far as the preparation goes. And that preparation is what can help the painting itself to really crack on later on. So we do just need to leave that to dry for a little while. The moulding paste on this canvas has had a chance to dry, and it's quite solid now. There are no little bumps that will suddenly burst on me and spread the white. Now I need to apply some paint, but before I do, I'm going to damp the canvas to stop the paint from sticking in and getting locked into it too quickly. So for this, I use kitchen roll and just water, just to very quickly damp the whole surface of the canvas, and that will help the colour to flow more easily. Now, this next process has worried some people, but I'm sure it'll be all right. I'm using the Atelier interactive acrylics because they dry a little slower than the normal ones, and that helps in this way of working. I'm picking up bits of the colours I want. That's the yellow ochre, burnt umber, and I'll have a little bit of the acrylamide yellow as well. And my first job is to get rid of that white canvas, and I do that quite simply by smearing the paint all over. Keep picking up extra little bits of it. Get it quite thick. Don't try to spread it too far. I'm going to put a little bit of blue in there. This is a phthalo blue, red shade, where I want just a bit of darkness here and there on the wall. Change the colours a little. And at the same time, I'll have some other parts where I use some naphthol red to give some warmth into it as well. This looks incredibly messy at the moment, and it is. This is the best bit of it, really. You might think that I've lost the picture altogether, but you remember I drew that drawing again into the moulding paste, the result of that is that my drawing isn't lost. It's embedded into the canvas. So now, having got that glorious mess on the canvas, you can put that away and start to wipe it off. Using a dry tissue to start with, I'm going to take it off from the lightest areas first, because if I start with the dark, that will just make everything muddy. So, small circular motions, taking the paint off those surfaces, gradually working into the darker areas, trying not to leave any hard edges at all. Soft edges are absolutely what we're after. That's a little bit thick there. I want to lift that paint off the canvas. I'm getting now a good soft blur of colour all over the canvas. Right. That's given me the mid-tones. The next step is to bring in a bit of light into that. So again, just using a kitchen rule, but this time damp it slightly, squeeze the water out so you're not getting it too wet. And the parts I want to lift up are the plasterwork above this gap in the bricks here. So if I rub that with the damp tissue, it lifts the paint off. So I can take a part off there, take some off this side as well. And then I've got a damp side and a dry side. If I go over that with the dry side now, it will bring that up nice and soft. And there again. Take a little bit more off this side too. It's really just balancing lights and darks over the whole picture, trying to create some kind of a light or kind of background for the main painting. But the idea of working so quickly like this is that it saves time. It's also essential because the paint will otherwise be drying, and you don't want that to happen on you too much. So you're forced into putting a bit of energy into it. And that energy, being bold at the start of the picture, helps to give life and vitality to even a simple subject like this. I can still put light into more parts. And that, bring a little bit of light into there. And we've got the beginnings of a plaster wall there. And it's the quality of the textures in here that I find most fascinating. I've actually created a plaster wall and then weathered it, painted it and weathered it. Once that's up to that stage, then I can start thinking about the shadows. I've got the mid-tones in, next step is the shadows. I'm using a size 6 filbert for this, sorry, size 8 filbert. And for the shadows, I'm going to use the red shade phthalo blue and some of the naphthol red to give me a nice warm purplish shadow colour. I'm going to run that along these cracks, under the top edge of this shadow, under the top edge of this open brickwork where the plasterwork is casting a shadow. Get a nice hard edge at the top, soften that with my thumb underneath to make that stand out. And do the same a little bit further down and perhaps under the bricks. And again, soften the edges. So we've got hard edges, soft edges, and the whole thing's starting to come together. Put a little bit of paint into those cracks. If I then rub it over the top, the crack stands out, the paint on the surface blurs away. And then once that's all in place, I always like to put a bit of colour, if I've used that colour there, I like to put it somewhere else. For no particular reason apart from just to spread the colour around and create a balance in the picture. Put a little bit under that shadow there perhaps. And rub it in. So we've got the dark, we've got the shadows in. Next step, let's brighten it up a little. So I'm looking for lighter colours such as white and the acrylamide yellow, and just so it doesn't get too gaudy, we'll throw in some yellow ochre as well. And that is still far too bright for what I want, so I'm going to put a lot of white into there. And then I'll pick up the lighter edges along here. And as before, just blur them in. Follow the edge of that crack down there perhaps, make it, because one piece of the plaster is projecting above another. A little bit along here. And rub it away from that edge, so I've got a sharp edge and a soft edge again, just so that will stand out clearly. Let's highlight that little bit of crack there. Okay, and again, odd smudge somewhere else just to add a little character to it. And then a little more warmth for the bricks that have been exposed, so bring some naphtha red into that yellow ochre and white mix. And just run a bit onto those. Only a little. I don't want it to get gaudy. That's perhaps a little bit bright for what I intended. So I'll put some burnt umber and yellow ochre onto that because that's far too bright for what I wanted. That's better. And just touching those bits of colour in there. And at that, again, I'll just put a little bit of that colour down elsewhere in the picture just to make it look as though it belongs, it's not totally alien to everything else. I can carry on working with that for hours, tweaking little bits, tidying bits up, but 90% of the picture's been done in a very few minutes.
A great inspiration there, folks, to both beginners and experienced artists alike. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more from Terry and his wide range of styles in the very near future. Well, now it's time for a quick break, but join us in part 3 when Marilyn Alice gives us an excellent introduction to using the power of watercolour to paint people in a loose, impressionistic style. See you soon.